Hello and welcome to the Grove Church Podcast. I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor there, and we are so glad that you're joining us. Whether you are a member and you're just catching up on a sermon that you missed, or you're someone who's brand new, we are really glad that you are joining us. And if you are new in some way, and I know that a lot of people will do that, will listen to sermons first before they visit, I want you to know that we would love to meet you at any point. You can join us live in our services on Sunday, 9 and 10:30, or our streaming service at 10:30. Either way, we would love to be able to get to know you. And regardless of why you are here listening to this sermon today, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, good morning. Hey, if you are new, I am Charlie, the lead pastor here, and really glad you are worshiping with us. And want to join Lauren and just kind of welcome me, saying Happy Mother's Day to all of our moms out there. And we're excited welcoming all the awesome moms. I know we got a lot who are visiting here with us too. Really glad that all of you are here and that we're getting to celebrate with you today. And I always also want to take a moment. I know that for some of us, it's also a time of remembering, maybe a little bit of sadness, and just where you are. We're glad that you're here and that we are worshiping with you today, and we're getting to be with you on this Mother's Day. And so again, Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And we are in the middle of a series on in 1 John, and we've been kind of walking our way through this, and just kind of a little bit of background to kind of remind us, those who've been here, to catch some of you up. The Apostle John is kind of writing this letter to this group of Christians who are being influenced by a group that has become to be known as the Gnostics. Starts with a G, G-O-N-O-S-T-I-C, Gnostics. And a couple of things about them, and it really matters. You're just going to see this as we continue to go through it, how this kind of keeps coming up. The two big things about them is that they don't believe that they believe that the physical world, everything about the physical world is evil. The body is evil, the world is evil. And because of that, if Jesus is spiritual and he's God, God would never become a human. And so that was kind of repugnant to them. And also, whoever created this physical world is not a good God, but a bad God. And there must be a good God behind that God. And in addition to that, they did not believe in salvation in the way that we think of it. I need to put my faith and trust in Jesus. But they believed that there was this moment of personal enlightenment, of knowledge that would just come to you. And when you would have that kind of elevated you to kind of understand. It was your moment of gnosis is kind of what it was referred to as. And so they were kind of above the world. They seemed very spiritual. They seemed very smart. And they were coming to this group and trying to influence them. And now John is writing this letter saying, hey, listen, this is what I taught you about who Jesus is and how you have life with God. And they're coming in and saying this, and he's coming, you gotta remember this, trust in this, not this. And so now imagine you're the recipient of this letter. You've talked to John, you talked to them, now you're getting this letter from John. Who do I trust? Who can I really believe? I mean, I've got two groups of people. Both seem very smart, both seem very spiritual, saying very different things. How do you know? How can you trust? And this is something, obviously, I think is very relevant to all of us, because while they may have two very strong voices coming at them, we have a barrage of voices coming at us all the time. Digitally, through video, through podcasts, all sorts of voices, all sorts of people proclaiming to be experts and telling us all sorts of things. How do we know? And it reminded me of this lecture that I went to. I think this was after I graduated college, but I was still working as a college minister at this school. And there was this group, I'd heard about it in some classes. There was this group of people that referred to as, they called themselves questers. They were people who were on a quest to discover who the historical Jesus was. And I had read some of these books and I had to listen to some things, but I'd never met one of like the leaders of this group. They brought in one of the leaders of this group to give a lecture on the campus. And so I was there at this. And this group, one of the things they would like to talk about is, hey, we're trying to help you understand who Jesus really was. Separating Jesus, the historical Jesus, from the fictional Christ. There's who Jesus really is, and there's who the church decided to add all this mythology to. Let's get all past that to who the real Jesus is. Rescuing Jesus from Christians, the authentic quest to find Jesus, all of these sorts of things. And so I'm sitting here in this lecture and really kind of for the first time being able to consume firsthand kind of what these people are saying. And just a lot of scholar talk. Scholars say, research says, people who know, just a lot of appeal to intellectualism. And at the same time, he was fairly winsome, and you could tell that he was very passionate about what he believed. But he's also, before this was even really a word, he's deconstructing right before our eyes who we were taught that Jesus was. And he's ultimately ending up with this very different Jesus. And as he's talking about this and the different principles involved to really discover who Jesus is, he says one of the things that's really important, because this is what he feels like Christians have done. They've taken Jesus and molded him into exactly who they want him to be. We can't do that. We need to let Jesus be who he is and not craft him into some image that we really, really like. And it was very interesting for him to say all of this. And I want to describe him to you a little bit. And by his own words, as he's describing himself, he is politically liberal, socially liberal, theologically liberal, just very liberal in kind of really all senses of this word. He's a professor, researcher, kind of a egghead, kind of, quirky little professor, used a lot of quippy quotes. Wasn't real methodical in the things that he said, but just kind of throwing out little aphorisms and little fun quotes and these kinds of things. And this is who he was. So in the Q&A, I was just kind of asking him, hey, tell us then, give us more. What is this Jesus like? And he says, first of all, he's definitely a politically liberal. And he's kind of like a professor. Uses a lot of he wasn't theologically dogmatic. He just used a lot of kind of quippy ideas and these kinds of things. And then people just eating it up. And I'm like, hold up now. Hold up. Don't make Jesus just like you, he says. Then what is Jesus like? Well, it just turns out I went on the historical quest and found out Jesus was in fact already just like me. I didn't have to do any work. He just was already like me. And it's are we seeing any of this? And in the crowd, I don't think many of us were. Because he was very smart, enlightened even. Seemed like he had a special knowledge, behind the scenes understanding of what was really going on that common regular people like us, we didn't have. And so it was very, very appealing. Who do you believe? Do you believe this guy, the professor, the scholar who knows all these things? The pastor that you grew up with? How do you know who to trust? And this is the same question that John is talking to them about. You've got me, you've got them, and you're trying to figure out who to believe. And so what he's putting out here today, he's making a case for what he thinks needs to be for them, and I think ultimately for us. What is the decider? And all of the voices that are telling us all sorts of things about God, about Jesus, about life, how do we decide who we're really going to listen to? 1 John chapter 4, starting in verse 1. Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. This is how you can recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit that acknowledges that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. But every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming, and even now is already in the world. You, dear children, are from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. They are from the world and therefore speak from the viewpoint of the world, and the world listens to them. We are from God. And whoever knows God listens to us, but whoever is not from God does not listen to us. This is how we recognize the spirit of truth and the spirit of falsehood. Going back here briefly to verse 1, kind of his opening ploy here. Dear friends, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirit to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. Hey, just because somebody says something, don't trust them. You don't have to don't trust everybody. There are lots of people out there saying they've got the Spirit. There's lots of people out there claiming to be prophets. There are a lot of people out there claiming to represent God in some way. Don't listen to all of them, but test them. And again, this is going to sound very obvious when I say it, but even though it is obvious and simple, I think it is incredibly profound to say this: don't listen to everyone. Don't listen to everyone. Not everyone who has a viewpoint and an idea is a valid viewpoint that you should be listening to. Don't listen to everybody. Some people are like, okay, I'm not going to listen to that. Now listen, I want to make sure I'm clear here. We kind of live in a very, very weird time in this world. I am neither an advocate for censorship, cancel culture, or any of those such things. I mean, I'm not asking for anybody to be deplatformed. I'm just saying, as you are thinking about who am I going to capital L listen to? What are the voices, the influences that I need in my life to help keep me grounded in who it is that God wants me to be and who God has called me to be? An authentic relationship with the true God of the universe. Who am I really going to listen to? Because again, there are a lot of different voices out there saying a lot of different things. And this will happen to me, and it happens to me all the time. It happens to me probably about once a week, but usually happens kind of in bursts, where some new video out there will hit, and then it will get sent to me, all caps, have you seen this, right? And depending on your social media, it could be from someone that you follow on Facebook. It could be an Instagram reel. It could be a YouTube video. It could be a TikTok video. Could be a podcast, right? But there's a genre to it. And I get these things, have you seen this? And I'm like, and I watch it and I think, I have not seen this particular video, but I did read the book 30 years ago, right? But it's new and it's fresh and there's a genre to it. I don't know if you've seen any of this, right? There's a few things that are always true about these things. One, always filmed in front of a bookcase. Always a bookcase. You're just smarter. And I go, I'm sitting here just kind of outing myself here a little, almost always with the glasses, bookcase, dressed, not like they're going out to some fancy dinner, but they're sharp. They're dressed sharp. And there's a voice, right? Maybe some of you have been around. You've heard me do voices before, traditional preacher voice or those kinds of things. This is a different voice. There's some things out there that they don't want you to know. Your Sunday school teacher would never tell you this. Your pastor doesn't want you to know this. There's something about the Bible that you don't know, and they're keeping it from you. Let's look at it here today. Weird smile. And they're very humble. They're actually very generous. I've got something, and they're keeping it from you. I, on the other hand, am not going to keep it from you. I'm going to tell you things they don't want you to know, an appeal to a criticism of an authority that maybe you already have a bit of a problem with, and an appeal to intellect, not just with the glasses and the books, but a lot of scholars, New Testament scholars, professors, they'll use a lot of these words, these very strong appeals to authority, to tell you something that you don't know. And again, I don't think these people are pure Gnostics, but that is exactly what they're dealing with here. This is what John is dealing with. There is something they can't or won't tell you. There is a hidden knowledge, a deeper understanding. And if you understand and have this deeper understanding, this deeper truth, then you will kind of rise above kind of the simplistic things that you've been taught about who Jesus is, about what sin is, about the way the world is. Jesus isn't who they said he was. This world is not what they said it was. And there is a deeper hidden knowledge that I want to invite you to. Here in the Gnostics, it's kind of coming really from more of from an overly spiritual kind of point of view. We get a lot of this high intellectual hidden knowledge that's being kept from you. And so it sounds very smart. It sounds very appealing. And when it is the first time that you hear something like this, it can be shocking. It can be disorienting. Because why would this guy get on TikTok and just say something that isn't true? But there are lots of people out there all of the time that are saying things that aren't true. Not necessarily they know they aren't true. They just believe something that happens to not be true. We're bombarded with voices all the time saying all sorts of things. How do we decide? Is it who seems to be the smartest? Who seems to be the most spiritual? How do we decide? If we go back here, verse 2, John is putting together what he believes to be the litmus test. The litmus test of whether or not we should invite someone we should really listen to use a word that is used in a different way. Am I going to let this person be an influencer for me? Not just somebody I will maybe occasionally listen to, but someone who has influence on me. Verse 2. This is how you can recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit that acknowledges that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. But every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming and even now is already in the world. So here's the test. Here's the test. Who do they believe Jesus is? Do they believe that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh and that it's from God? Then you can trust them if they say anything different than that. Don't trust them. That's something else completely. And so we don't want to, in capital L, listen to everyone. And here, according to John, this is the ultimate test. The ultimate test is, do they know who Jesus is? Do they know who Jesus is? If there's someone that knows and acknowledges Jesus, then that's someone that you can genuinely trust. Right? And from the Gnostics' perspective here, so this phrase is very intentional on his part. They believe that Jesus, Son of God, has come in the flesh. What would have been reprehensible to them about that would be the coming in the flesh part. That Jesus is a spiritual being, and a genuine spiritual being would never take on a body. So if you're saying that, then you don't know who Jesus is, and you should just kind of set what they say. You should set it aside. Now here, it's a little bit different. There's an acknowledgement that Jesus has come in the flesh, but not that he was the Son of God sent from God. He's just a dude that got elevated after the fact. But if you cannot say, I believe that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, was sent by God here, became a man, I'll put you over here. Who Jesus Christ is, that is the issue. That's the starting point. That is the line we draw. It's like, if I really want to allow this person to be a teacher, to be an influence over me, to be able to be someone, again, that I really and genuinely listen to. Now, again, there's people that have all sorts of ideas and can be experts about any number of topics, and we don't necessarily need to subject them to this. Like, for example, my wife and I are meeting tomorrow with a lawyer to do some estate planning. I, as of yet, have not asked him what his beliefs on the incarnation are and the nature of Jesus Christ. He was suggested to me as a reputable lawyer. It also doesn't matter to me who serves my food. Right? I take it back. Most of my food gets served to me at Chick-fil-A. So you don't even really have to ask. And obviously there are people that have a lot of wisdom and insight about a particular idea, a particular issue, Old Testament background, linguistics, how the Bible got put together. There's lots of things where someone can have a particular knowledge and understanding. It's like, hey, when I want to learn a little bit more about this, I want to hear from them. But as far as someone in my life that I'm allowing them to tell me the nature of God, the nature of reality, the nature of Jesus, who I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to be becoming, where eternal life is found both in the future and in this moment. It begins with an acknowledgement that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, has come in the flesh. Who he was, why he came, what he did, why he did that, that is the foundational principle on which all of this, everything needs to be built. Because typically what can tend to happen, and I have seen it countless numbers of times, there is some secondary issue. Maybe it's political, maybe it's social, maybe it's moral, but there's some issue that really isn't about the nature of Jesus or the nature of the gospel, but kind of an implication of it. Well, if I'm going to be a follower of Christ, how do I need to behave in this way? How do I need to act in this way? What position should I take, right? But we start here, and the position that you believe, the position that you have, it feels out of the mainstream. This is the mainstream of what Christians seem to be, and I feel like I sit over here. And when you feel like that, you feel isolated, you feel alone, and so you turn to a podcast, you turn to a blog, you turn to some sort of video, and you finally find someone who's saying what you're saying, and something about that feels really good. Or maybe it's not that you're out of the mainstream. Maybe I'm in the mainstream, but I feel like I'm in a small minority here, and I'm fighting this overwhelming thing, and I need to know. I need more understanding. Or maybe I'm in the mainstream. Maybe the mainstream's wrong, or maybe you're mad about fighting this minority, and like I need to find weapons and ammunition to back up this secondary position. And so you find somebody, they seem smart, they seem spiritual, and they are saying exactly what you think, and there's something about that. You take it, you love it, and you want to hear more of that. And they're validating this secondary issue, and we haven't done the work yet to test the spirit. Is this someone that I can genuinely trust as an authority in my life to tell me about Jesus, about God, about life? And what happens if we don't do that work? And we end up getting this kind of subtle influence from someone else who's got something very different to say. They've got something very different to say about Jesus. They've got something very different to say about God. They've got something very different to say about sin and life. But I find them because I'm attracted to them about this other thing. Then all of a sudden, I find myself getting swept up in something, and I'm going to end up someplace 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 3 years from now, someplace personally and spiritually I never wanted to be. Because I've invited in the wrong influence into my life without testing it first. And again, there are plenty of people out there, and authors and writers, content creators, that I will look to when I have a particular question because they seem to have an area of expertise here. But they don't have a voice in my life. Because before I want to let someone genuinely have a voice in my life, I want to test it. And so then this becomes who Jesus Christ is, becomes this word, this phrase, this idea is used all throughout the scripture. A cornerstone, a rock, a foundational piece. This is the thing on which we're building. Now, we may build all sorts of different sorts of houses on this foundation. And we may have to agree to disagree about a lot of different things, about all of the implications of what it means to live a life with Jesus Christ. Politically, socially, morally, we talk about it, we discuss, we invite each other, we're helping each other, we're refining each other to understand all of the implications of what it means to be a Christ follower at this moment, in this place, at this time. But it starts with this foundational piece. I put my faith and trust in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, sent by God in the flesh, to teach me about God, to show me how to live, and to give me life through his death and resurrection. And on that foundation, now we start talking about all the other things and all of these different implications. And over the years, had a lot of people that have left the church for one reason or another because of really kind of one of these secondary or third level issues. It may surprise you that people have left the church because we were too liberal on social justice issues. People have left the church because we were too conservative on social justice issues. People have left the church because we were too liberal on sex and sexuality questions. Some have left because we were too conservative. Gender, all sorts of things, too liberal, too conservative. We've disagreed on all of these different things, and I don't like that. I don't like it. I mean, I want us to be able to agree to disagree here in this place, but I understand. But here's the thing that has been incredibly important to me, to our staff, to the elders, to the leaders here at this church. People are not going to leave because we are wrong about who Jesus Christ is. That is foundational. We're not going to move. We're not going to sway who Jesus is and what he did. That is an immovable thing. Now let's agree on that. Let's test all the spirits. Let's test one another. Let's test the blogs that we read, the podcasts that we listen to, the videos that we watch. Are these people that I can trust? I can trust them. And now the real work is us hanging out here on Sundays in our small groups and Bible studies and one-on-ones talking about, man, if this is true and this is true, I think this is how we should live. Actually, I think this is how we should live. And we work and we help and we encourage and we challenge each other to live the best life in this world at this time. But with the foundational principle of we know who Jesus Christ is, the Son of God in the flesh. And so he puts all this out here. Hey, listen, man, don't listen to everybody. You got to test people. And you test them on this idea of who Jesus Christ is. And then verse 4, I love this. I love what he says. I love what he says here because it is so gentle. It's so kind. Verse 4, you, dear children, are from God and have overcome them because the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world. They're from the world and speak the viewpoint of the world. The world listens to them, but we're from God. And whoever knows God listens to us. He's manifesting this in them. He's not rebuking them. He's not mad at them. He's not harsh with them. He's like, here's the thing that I know. You know, I know, and I know that you know. You have Jesus in you. You've experienced Jesus. You've had his Spirit in you. And the Spirit of Jesus Christ is greater than all of these spirits. And it has overcome all of these other things. And I know that you have placed your faith and your trust in him. I know this. And so because of that, here's what his encouragement is like, here's what you need to do. You need to recognize and reject falsehood. And I know you can do it because you've got God in you. The Spirit of Jesus Christ is in you, and it is the overcoming spirit of all of the things the world has to throw at you. All of its distractions, all of its falsehoods, its misunderstandings about God, about life, about sin, about hope. I know that you'll be able to do this because I know that you know who Jesus Christ is. And this is my great encouragement to you. Again, there's some content creators out there putting out some pretty good stuff. And they can help you understand a couple of different things. But they're wrong in the main about who Jesus Christ is. And you think it's fine, I'm just going to take in this content so I can learn all these things. But then there's these little subtle jabs that come in there about outdated ideas about Jesus, outdated ideas about the world, outdated ideas about sin. Little subtle things that they throw out there, and you think, I can resist it. But I don't know that any of us can resist kind of this constant pressure against the foundational truths of what we believe, because eventually we just get swayed a little bit. And then we drift, and suddenly it started with, I'm out of the mainstream on this one issue. And then suddenly I'm starting to think differently about Jesus. I'm starting to think differently about God. I'm starting to think different about His word. And suddenly I find myself over here in a place where I've lost connection with Jesus Christ. In some of the earlier weeks of this series, the other thing that John's really been harping on is the thing that I said is like one of the most important spiritual, theological issues for us to wrestle with if we're going to long-term walk with God. It is whether or not I can do whatever I want because God has given me freedom, or I'm required to follow God's rules. And how we put these two things together, and how I can embrace the freedom that God has given me and live the life that God's called me to, how we can put those two things together in a very practical way, I believe is one of the most important things that we can wrestle with. Deeper than that. I believe the most important foundational theological bedrock principles, if I am wanting to be someone who lives a life connected to God, honoring God, becoming the men and women that God has called us to be, the most important theological issue upon which I will not falter, I will not hear other ideas, I will not ponder, I will not reject, I will not allow other voices to be strong in my life, is the person who Jesus Christ is. It is this issue, my understanding of who Jesus is, how He came, why He came. That is the issue that will keep you grounded. I want you to grow. I want you to develop. I want you to become incredible, godly men and women in your homes, in your work, in your community, doing incredible things for God. That's what I want. I want you to grow. I want you to get better. I want you to learn. I want you to become more than what you are. I want to become more than what I am. I want to honor God more 10 years from now than I do right now. I want to grow. But listen, we never grow beyond knowing who Jesus Christ is. We build on that. We don't get past it. We don't go beyond it. We don't graduate from it. There is not some hidden knowledge, hidden understanding, be it spiritual or intellectual, that is going to grow you up or grow you past this bedrock idea. Jesus Christ is the Son of God who gave His life for you. And now together, let's build lives on that principle that honor God and bring hope to the world. Let me pray. God, I thank You for Your Son. God, I thank You for all that He has taught us, He's given us, He's shown us, the life that we have in Him. And God, I do pray that as we grow, as we mature, as we learn, as we become somebody very different than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and we're becoming somebody very different 5, 10 years from now, that it would be building on the truths of who You are and who Your Son is, not evolving or growing past them. That we would build a life of social and moral and spiritual courage based on the nature and the character of Your Son, Jesus Christ. So God, teach us more about Jesus. Draw us closer to Him. And help us become the men and women that You've called us to be. And it is in His name that we pray. Amen.
Thanks again for joining us on our sermon podcast, and you can learn more about us at thegrovechurch.org. And if you go to thegrovechurch.org/connect, there's a form you could fill out. Just let us know that you've been listening. And if you want to dig deeper on some of these topics that we cover in our sermon podcast or just in other issues of dealing with culture or theology, those kinds of things, you can check out our Cultivate podcast, which is on the same feed, however you found this particular podcast. So again, this is Charlie, the lead pastor at The Grove, and thank you so much for joining us.